Hello, got a bit of an early upload this week going through the assignment, so just don't worry if you're not onto it yet. This is just for you later in the week if you see it earlier on, and just a summary for the topics. Firstly, the topics we have implicit differentiation, which is, as it says here, the last bit of actual hard differentiation that we do this year, because the only other differentiation we have is differential equations, which isn't really differentiation, it's just integration, and convex and concave functions, which is really easy, and maybe some modelling with differentiation, but that's fine. And then we also have this further maths corporeal stuff, which again you don't have to worry about because you're not going to get assessed on it. So it's a pretty chill week because we're spending a lot of time. Even though there's only one learning pack page on this, I think we have like 3 lessons on it because there's a lot that you have to get used to. But if I can give any advice, just be careful for product rule when they're putting in the ellipses with like 4xy, and make sure you use product rule on that. But anyway, let's go through the assignment. Thoughts of the assignment, it was pretty, they just copy pasted questions from previous assignments and also from exams. So yeah. Alright, first question. It has 2 distinct roots. Wait, this is the wrong assignment. Great start. So yeah, two real roots. So it says it doesn't actually say in the mark scheme you have to use set notation, but when it says the set of values, I would always use set notation just to be careful. Discriminant is greater than 0. Just solve. You draw your little graph for the quadratic inequality like GCSE, and then write your set out. Case where k equals 4 root 3. Yeah, this is fine. I think this is a different answer, but I think the answer in the mark scheme is wrong here if I'm correct. No, maybe this is a different question I'm thinking of. And then you have this. You have this. Solve the equation f of x equals 0. This is fine. Right, next question. This is it looks really long, but actually it's just translations and stuff like that. So turning point 2g of x, you just multiply the y coordinate by 2. Largest root of this equation, where you just move the largest root of the original one and you just shift it to the left. The state range of values where g dash of x is less than or equal to 0, where you don't actually have to do any differentiation because it shows you the graph and you can just see that it's when x is less than 4 because that's when the gradient is negative. And then saying that this has 0 real roots, you just say when k is greater than 1.5, this will be above the x-axis, which means there'll be no real roots. And that's the question. Alright, question 2. Y-intercept is, you just kind of guess. I don't really know what they're expecting you to do here, other than just guess the y-intercept based on the graph, which is 12. Then this B, C, D, and E, you have to say that you have to show that you have to see that the intercepts are at -4, -1, 1, and 3. So you write it out as x plus 1, x minus 1, x minus 3, and x plus 4. Then you expand all that out. It's pretty nice expansion because this is difference of 2 squares, and a lot of these are literally 4 out of 5 of the terms are 1 or -1. So that will cancel very nicely, and then you get your values. Next, this express it has a different graph. Express it as a product of 3 linear factors. I don't know what else they expect you to do other than just guess, because you're supposed to use the y-intercept. You know that one of them or 2 of them must be negative, because there is a negative here, so one of them must be negative, and there's a positive here, so there must be 2 negative. There must be an even number of negatives, which is only 2 in this case. So, and it's going to be 1, 2, and 4 as well, or 2, 2, and 2. But you can, yeah, but you just kind of have to trial and error it until you get it. And then sketching the graph, you just sketch the graph. There's nothing really interesting about that. You have the roots. You have the y-intercept. Right, next question. Work out this equation of the line. Easy stuff. Show that L is a tangent. Just substitute values in. Substitute 2x plus 1 to y. You get this. Expand. Discriminant equals 0. One solution. Next, you have find the length from where P touches the circle. So firstly, you find the tangent point. Sorry, you find the tangent point, yeah, which is 1, 1, and then you from point P. This is just a random point. This has nothing to do with the circle. So you just go from the tangent point to the circle to the P, and then just use Pythagoras on that, and you get the answer. Next, we have a completely different equation. They really like just putting different questions in the same question here, just to extend the assignment for no reason. So find an equation for the circle where you already know this is the center. So that's two out of 3 parts of the circle equation, and then you just use Pythagoras on this point, since you know that from P to C is a radius. And then for part B, it says that this point lies on a tangent line. So what I did is I used this. This is a method you can use to find tangents, where you substitute the x coordinate into one of the x minus 2's and the y coordinate into one of the y minus 5's, and then that gives you the tangent of the circle. And then I substituted x equals 2, y equals k, like this coordinate, and it gave me 1k value. And that is my answer. Or that is the answer. Alright, next, I'm not going to go over any of these because it's just simple integrals. It's just the same thing. You just do simplify it down to powers, do the integral, sub the limits in, to put it in your calculator. Yeah, I'm not going to explain this. Same with this question, actually. I think this is already on the previous assignment, so I'm not really going to go through it. Like, part A is easy. You have to just do the limits. And then part B, you reciprocate this one, reciprocate this one, reciprocate this one. It's easy. Now, on this one, actually, I forgot to do last video because I just completely skipped the question for no reason, even though it's an easy question. But this time, I actually did do it. So you use the compound angle tan formula to get this stuff, and then you cross multiply this fraction, and you eventually get a minus 5 root 3 after you rationalize. Remember, when you're rationalizing, even though you can't just put in your calculator to rationalize it for you, you should be showing the you can just go from this stage to the answer, but you should show that you're multiplying by the conjugate of the denominator, and then you will get the accuracy mark. Next, we have this curve. Find where it crosses the x-axis. We'll set it to 0. Solve. Quadratic. Boom. Next, stationary point, where you differentiate. Set to 0. Solve. Nature of the stationary point, you do d2y over dx squared. I definitely should have done d2y over dx squared. I would get like 0 out of 2 for this. But you just say that it's maximum. And you actually do d2y over dx squared and substitute the point in. I don't know why I just did this. And then sketching is just like something like that. Because you have the stationary point, you have the 2 roots, so you can kind of guess that it looks like that. Right, this question was also on the previous assignment, so we do x squared h equals 500 because that's the volume. The volume doesn't change because the top's gone. Then you say the surface area as x squared plus 4xh because one of the x squares is gone because it has no top. Substitute, you get the formula, differentiate, solve, substitute. There's your answer. Next we have some more boring stuff. Just differentiate again. Then set it to greater than 0 because it's saying find when it's an increasing function. It does say write your answer in set notation. So yeah. Alright, this question sucks because it tells you, for some reason, it tells you, this question makes sense for 2 different reasons. This is including finding the value of a. So finding the value of a and doing these 2 integrals is 4 marks, and then putting a, which is like, I don't know, what is a again? 16 to the power of 2/3. Putting that in the form 2 to the k is 4 marks. So this is a ridiculous amount. I don't know what they expected to do. Maybe they expected you to do these integrals in terms of a and then find a here, but I'm really not. I don't know what like the order of this question, because if it was me like making this question, the first thing I would say is find the value of a, and then I would do these integrals, and then for like a 1 mark question I would do show that a equals 2 to the k. But anyway, so firstly I just found a by doing this, by saying, because it says the area from 1 to a is 10, so you just set it equal to 10, put the bounds in, you get a, and then next you find both of these integrals, and then you can just put this in the form 2 to the 8/3 because you're just simplifying the power down. Next we have some vectors. Finding a, b, just, what do I say here? Show that it's a trapezium. Well, that means that a, b, and o, c, you see from this diagram, are parallel. because that's what makes a trapezium. So you should show that OC has a scalar of AB, which means that they're parallel, which means it's a trapezium. This is quite a funny bait question, because if this actually came up in the exam, you would think it's a differential equation, which we'll learn like next half term, which are like hard. And then it says a linear model, so it's just baited you into thinking that it's a hard question, and then it gives you a linear model. So you get the points, find the gradient, do the points, substitute stuff in. So the initial volume is just the y-intercept, and time taken is when you let v equal 0 and then solve. And then why it might not be suitable, well, because it's a negative gradient, it's letting the volume be negative after a certain amount of time, which doesn't make any sense. Next we have some factor theorem. Explain why it's divisible by f. You should definitely show that you're substituting -3 in and not just do f of 3, -3 equals 0. That's just me being lazy. Algebraic division, next part, factorize, and then here, don't make the mistake that I did initially of trying to algebraically divide both these fractions. You already have this factorized, and this you can just factorize a singular x out of, and then it becomes an easily factorized quadratic. So, and then it will become this, and you can just simplify it. Next we have some proof. This is taking a lot longer than usual because there's so many questions. Use a counterexample, sure. Then difference between the cube and a square of an odd number is even, where you do the cube of an odd number, take away the square of an odd number, simplify it, and there's your answer because 2 factorizes out. Next we have some log equations. So I always do way too many steps at once when I do log equations, which is my mistake. One is log base 4 of 4. This left thing here is log base 4 2 minus x squared, because you move the 2 to the power, and then the x minus 5 will be divided here because that's another log law, and then you can take the logs away because we have one big log base 4 on the left side, and then you get to this point and you just solve. You need to say it. Usually they did a cool little trick here, where usually it's the negative solution that is not a real solution, because whenever you take logs away, you sometimes create fake solutions. So you have to, and when it says find any real values of x, it means that you have to sub in the values to check if one of the logs becomes undefined. So for this case, the positive value becomes undefined instead of the negative value, when usually it's the negative value, because you have a 2 minus x here. Next we have some more trick stuff. I'm not going to explain this. You just find the values, divide by 2, or take away 10, divide by 2. This question was a bit weird. I don't really know what the second one was, because it doesn't say in the mark scheme. Maybe I just didn't idea. But the main one is that they didn't factorize sine x out, they divided by sine x, which is a big no, because you can get more solutions. Finding the smallest possible solution to this, well, the smallest possible solutions mean that alpha is greater than or equal to 0, which means that 4 alpha plus 199, if you multiply by 4 and then add 199, so 4 alpha plus 199 needs to be greater than or equal to 199, otherwise it won't be a positive solution. I solved, from this thing here, you know that the two different equations you have is sine x equals, or sine of 4 alpha plus 199 equals 0, or cos 4 alpha plus 199 equals 7/8. Try both of them, you see that the lowest solution is this one, which is 3 through 1, and then you solve for alpha, and that's your solution. Next question, almost done with section A, which I think section B is a lot faster, which is good. There's the same difficulty, but the questions are a lot shorter. So using algebra, find the x coordinate of point A, so you just set them equal to each other. Yeah, becomes a hidden quadratic. This is a 5, not a square root. My 5s look like square roots. This is a square root, but this is a 5. That's 2 root x. That's 5x. Jesus, I got confused myself. That's root x. Oh my god. That is 5x. That is 2 root x. Sorry. And then you factorize. Don't make the mistake of putting the 5 in the root. Yeah. Then next, it's asking us to do these regions. I didn't actually realize at first this line is on the x, the root of this curve C, so you have to find the root, which is 4/9. The reason you can just divide by x here is because the other solutions are 0, 0, which you can see. So you can just divide by x instead of factorizing. And then you say x is greater than 4/9 or equal to, y is less than or equal to this curve, y is greater than or equal or greater than the line. All right, finishing off with some exponential modeling. Again, as I said in like 2 videos ago, they always like to do state the initial whatever in the model where you set t to 0. At the start of the investigation, set t to 0, it's just 0.2. Rate of increase, exactly 5 days in, is just dA by dt when t equals 5. And you have to do meters squared per day because t is in days and area is in meters squared. Next, surface area of 100 meters squared. So you just set it for 4 marks. This is not much to do. It's just solving an exponential equation with e. And then you have to convert 20.7 into 20 days and 17 hours, which you just multiply 0.7 by 24, because there's 24 hours in a day, and that'll give you 17. And then the evaluating the model, you just say that it's bad because it says that 90% will be covered in a month, when in reality all of it has been covered in 21 days. Or no, the other way around, sorry. Oh god, alright, vectors. There's a few questions on vectors here. So finding the speed, whenever I mention a scalar, it's usually Pythagoras. Then next, you do the position vector after t seconds, where you just substitute it into r equals r0 plus vt. I don't really know, I haven't really done the working here, but when you substitute it, you will get that answer. When the ball is due east of B, that just means that the j component is 0, and you solve for t, and then you solve for t again. I think, yeah, this is where the answers are the wrong way around, because I checked with multiple different sources, and they were all telling me this and not what the answer said. Next, you have some more vectors, but this time in 3D. 3D vectors actually tend to be easier because they tend to ask simpler questions because it's in 3D. Show the parallel, where you just say that CD is negative 1.5 AB, so there's a scalar, and then describing the quadrilateral will be a trapezium because it's the parallel, as we said in the last question, or no, a few questions ago. Next, we have this ship. So you find the speed, which is, well, firstly you find the distance, and then which is the scalar of displacement. So you do Pythagoras on this, divide by the time, so distance over time is the speed. Make sure it's in kilometers per hour. Next, the direction it's moving, you just do arctan of that, and then you take away from 90 because I haven't drawn the diagram, but if you imagine it, your bearings are always from the north. Also, they forgot to put the 0 here in the answer, so in the answer sheet, but there should be a 0 here because that's how bearings are written. Show that this, well, we just did this in the last question, use S equals S0 plus VT, or it's the same thing as R equals R0 plus VT. I choose a different notation. And then so here I actually did use the working. So you do the vectors, and then you see that there's 9 plus 3t i's and minus 6 plus 4t j's. This was an interesting question, actually. So this lighthouse, you say that it has the position vector of S minus the position vector of L. So if you go from S to L, and then you could put this in. You can put this into here. Simplify this down, and you just, if you square both sides, if you use Pythagoras, because it says the it's 10 kilometers from L, which means that if you square both of them, then it will give you 10, and then after that you can just solve as a quadratic, and you get the two answers. Which, now I'm thinking about it, I didn't actually check these answers. I don't think I checked the. I know I was right. I didn't check question 3 answers. Anyway, histograms, this was easy. So firstly, you just write the stuff you see on the histogram. Next, estimate the number of people. Well, it's 5/7 of this bar plus this bar. Mean, standard deviation, and quartiles, you can just use your calculator. Or median and quartiles, you use interpolation, allegedly, but who was doing that realistically? Who was doing interpolation 3 times just for this question, if it's not actually in the exam? And then, yeah, so you use a calculator for these two, and then whatever for this one, you just interpolate. Next, we got my favourite question next on the large data set, obviously. Well, it's saying that x is a city on the continent of Asia, and we know from the large data set that the only city in the large data set on Asia is Beijing. TR means trace or less than 0.05 millimeters of rainfall. And they always like doing this, so the reason why they use only 8 data points, well, it's easier to process, but there could be more points for more accuracy. That's the pros and cons. And then comparing this is just like in GCSE, where you have to compare two different like statistics, and you just say one has a lower range, one has higher, medium, whatever, until you're done. Oh Jesus, there's a long assignment. Next we have some more partial fractions, fun stuff. Or I'm saying there hasn't been any yet. But when you have repeated linear factors, you can't use cover-up method, unfortunately. So well, you can find A, but you can't find anything else. So I've used the cover-up method for A. So where you let A, you cover x, cover 1 minus 3x in this fraction, let x equals 1/3, substitute it in, and that's your A value. And then I've done the normal creating coefficients method for this. I've done all my simultaneous equations and then just substituted the A value in here after completely finishing my simultaneous equations, so I can get max marks. Before, like, it's kind of really cheating because you're not just showing your method as much. And then after that, you just substitute A value, get your B and C value, and it says show that B is 0, so it's fine that B is 0. Next question, some more. This is just normal partial fractions, except there's an A value, so I just substituted I wrote out the entire thing after using the cover-up method, since you can't use the cover-up method for this, or at least I don't think so, and you just let x equal 0, because you can do that, and it will cancel basically everything out, and that will give you A equals 2. Next, this is just compound angle stuff, so you use the compound angle formula, then you use the double angle formula, and then you expand, simplify. That's your answer. Next, this 8 sine cubed minus 6 sine is just minus 2 of what you just created. So it's just minus 2 sine 3 theta plus 1 equals 0, and then that's easy to solve. Next, we have the large data set again, amazing. So you need to know that A is Lucas. Obviously, you only need to know the coastal ones for this question, but A is Lucas, B is Leeming, C is Heathrow, D is Herne, and E is Camborne. So make sure you're remembering that. Just remember it's pretty easy to remember that it goes in order of the alphabet apart from Heathrow and Herne, but they both start with H, and you know that Heathrow is near London, so you know that Camborne is C, so it's at the bottom. Leeming and Lucas, Lucas has L-E-U, so it's at the top. Leeming is L-E-E, so it's below Lucas. Then Herne and Heathrow are the last two. Well, Heathrow is near London, so you can figure that out, and then Herne is the last one. Next we have this. There's probably like a cool way to do this, but I just use the compound angle formula that cancels out. You get 2 times half times cos 2x, and that gives you your answer. Next we have some more proof. Counterexample is such a waste of my time and everyone else's time because it's just substituting random values in to get an exact counterexample. Same with this. Prove that it's not prime. If it's prime for all integers and between 1 and 5, you just substitute the integers between 1 and 5. And then prove that it's not prime for all values of n was just another counterexample. Then this one is actually interesting. So it's proof that the sum of 2 consecutive odd integers is 2 more than a multiple of 8. Well, guess what? We've done this exact question before in, I think it was the last assignment. So yeah, just do the same thing. The sum of the squares of 2 consecutive. Just remember to do 2n minus 1, 2n plus 1 when you're doing consecutive odd numbers. So the stuff cancels. As you see, the 4 n's cancelled out here, which made it a bit easier. Obviously 8 would still factorize out, but it's just easier to write out. Saves you like 10 seconds of time. Next, more stats. Missing midpoints. This is like primary school level. Mean birth height, just use your calculator, or just actually know you already have the values. You could just find the sum of the frequency, and that will give you your, basically just give you the mean. Then standard deviation, calculator, formula, whatever you want. Then interpolation. I actually use interpolation here because I need to practice it. Next, we have for the last question, we have some proof by contradiction. They like these types of questions, as well as like prove that blank is irrational. So you say that there are two integers where this equation is true, and then you divide by 15, or this is just the way I did it. Simplify this fraction, and then I did like a long English essay here describing why you can't say 5/3 of an integer plus an integer has anything with denominator 15, because otherwise it would simplify to, basically I just said that if you add an integer to something with denominator 3 in its simplest form, then it can't be, it will still be denominator 3 in its simplest form, so it can't get to 50, because this is denominator 15 in its simplest form, which means that this can't work. Right, actually 0 voice cracks today, which is interesting since it was a pretty long assignment. So I'm not going to speak anymore, and I will see you next time, which will be pretty far away actually.